Allodial Title is something that most people don't understand because they've been in this system for that long that we know nothing other than renting our property off the government. 66 people have been named by the local council here in Central Queensland, which is the Central Highlands Regional Council. Front cover of the paper, they decided to talk about the fact that they are now issuing notices to those people in the next couple of months. I might be one of them, I don't know yet, for not paying rates. And they did a good job of saying that, the rest of the people in the Highlands should never have to carry the burden of those that would not pay their rates. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But that's the point, right? Those 66 people are about to find out whether they own outright or whether they own through mortgage, who really owns their land. And if they owned outright, which I do for one property through my self-managed super fund, it's only $100,000 property, so don't think I'm rich, right? I'm contesting how they get their power for their rates. I'm asking them, Section 51, Section 55, why not 128, and how they comply 109, right? Pretty simple, everybody does it. Lots of people have been beaten in court, but I'm pushing on them learning the system, asking how and why the third tier of government exists, and why my title, my paper copy title, has been voided, right? Why did the Queensland government get the right to void my paper copy title, and now only the digital version that's held in their coffers on their computer is the only one that they'll accept as real evidence of ownership? Like, it's weird, It's like there's a 2030 UN agenda through the Sendai framework, UNDRR sort of stuff. But have a look at what Allodial Title is supposed to mean, and then ask yourself, do I own my property?
The monopoly on Allodial Title, how government and banks keep it from the people. Allodial Title, the absolute ownership of land without any obligation to a superior entity, is virtually impossible for the average person to obtain. Yet the government and banks seem to hold Allodial Title by default, while individuals are locked into a system of mortgages, taxes and forced servitude. This is by design. So 1. What is Allodial Title? Allodial Title is land ownership free of liens, taxes or feudal obligations. The holder has complete control over their property, unlike fee simple ownership, which requires continuous payments to the state, property taxes, and compliance with government-imposed regulations. Fee simple, permission to occupy, subject to taxes, eminent domain, and liens. Allodial Title equals true ownership, immune from foreclosure or taxation. The lie: people think they own their property after paying off a mortgage. The reality: they are tenants of the state, as non-payment of property taxes leads to confiscation. 2. The only entities that hold Allodial Title. Only the government and banks hold land in an allodial capacity, while private citizens are forced into servitude under fraudulent legal constructs. A. The government's monopoly on land. Governments hold Allodial Title and force owners to pay property taxes, making private ownership an illusion. Eminent domain allows the state to seize any property at will. If you stop paying property taxes, the government will take the land, proof that your ownership is a rental agreement. Key fact: the government's land claims are based on the doctrine of discovery, a colonial-era legal fiction giving absolute ownership to ruling authorities. B. The banking system's deception. Banks do not loan money. They create debt out of thin air and use it to bind borrowers into lifetime financial servitude. When you take out a mortgage, the bank doesn't actually give you money. They issue credit against your future labor while securing true ownership of the home. If you default, the bank seizes the property, proving they had superior title all along. How banks keep Allodial Title. Fraudulent lending. Mortgages are based on fiat currency created from nothing. Contractual trap. Home buyers sign contracts granting the bank power over their property. Debt cycle. Even after paying off a mortgage, property taxes ensure that ownership is never truly yours. Now 3. Mortgages. A system of unconscionability and moral turpitude. A mortgage is one of the most unconscionable contracts in existence. It represents an undue burden designed to extract wealth through deception, not mutual benefit. A. Unconscionability in mortgages. A contract is unconscionable if it is one-sided, deceptive, or exploits power imbalances. Mortgages fit this definition perfectly. Lack of consideration. Banks do not risk actual money. They create loans from thin air and demand repayment with real labor and assets. Unfair terms. Loan terms are dictated by predatory interest rates, hidden fees, and deceptive clauses that favor the lender. Power imbalance. The borrower has no real negotiation power, sign or be homeless. If mortgages were fair, they would provide full disclosure that banks are creating debt, not lending actual money. Allow borrowers to discharge the debt without seizure of property. Recognize that interest is usury, making the contract void. B. The moral turpitude of mortgages. Moral turpitude refers to acts that are inherently dishonest or corrupt. Mortgages embody this concept because they exploit human necessity. Shelter is a basic need, yet the system turns it into a tool of economic slavery. Perpetuate generational debt. Homebuyers are saddled with lifelong financial burdens, often leading to foreclosure. Create a fraudulent monopoly. Banks lend what they do not own, while foreclosing on real property. A system built on deception, coercion, and fraud is one of moral corruption. Yet this is the foundation of modern real estate finance. How to challenge this system? 1. Expose the fraud. Demand banks prove they provided real money in the mortgage transaction. They can't. Challenge the contract as unconscionable and void for lack of consideration. 2. Seek true land ownership. Look for methods to claim allodial title, such as state-specific homesteading protections or trust structures. Avoid mortgages where possible. Pay cash or explore private contracts outside the banking system. 3. Leverage the law against the system. Challenge property taxes as a violation of true ownership. Push for legislation that recognizes allodial title for individuals, not just the state. Final thought. The great property scam. The illusion of property ownership is one of the greatest deceptions ever imposed on the public. The government and banks hold allodial title, while individuals are reduced to tenants paying lifetime rent under a system of fraud, coercion, and financial slavery. The path to true ownership requires exposing this deception and dismantling the legal fictions that keep people enslaved. The monopoly on allodial title.